if I open, right, let's start from the beginning, actually, because I still get this question sometimes, right? I mean, how do I, right? Well, I see my material, let's say that it's purple, right, whatever, but then I go into my render view, right, and it disappears. Now, why does that color material disappears? Okay, right, we have to differentiate between two things. There's one thing that is called the layer color and another thing that is called the material properties. Not only material color, but it's all the properties that a material may have, right? So again, what's really useful is to understand the properties tab of an object, right? If I select on an object right here, it will give you, right, what type of an object it is, what layer it is on, the display color, line type, etc., etc. Casting shadows or not. That's also interesting. At some point, you may want to turn it off, or you don't see those options right there. You do want to see those shadows right there. Receive shadows as well, right? I mean, when it's adjacent to some other objects. Now, again, in this case, we can see its color, right? I can change the display right there, but it only affects, right, on our shaded view, which again, the shaded mode only allows us to see our layer color. For the most part, you want those to be matching, right? You want the display color to be matching by layer. And again, sometimes I jump into some of you guys' computers, and sometimes that gets changed right there. But when we are trying to see materials onto the actual object itself, what we want to do is to use the material properties right here, which you know, you have that paint tube right there. And if you place your cursor on top of it, it says materials. Right now, there's no material right there. We can create one, right, from scratch, right? We create that. I don't like how that looks, right? It's a kind of difficult to see it right there in this tab, right? But if I go back to the layers, right, and I click on any of these here. So we talked about layer color, right? So that's our layers. And then over here you have material. And then you have this little bubble right next to it. Okay, I don't know if you guys see it. It's a circle. Let's see what layer is this. This is layer 2. Okay, so if we click on that little circle right there, it brings this window right here. There's some I guess standard materials that come with it. Right, you have your gem, your glass, your metal, your paint, picture, plaster, or plastic. Now, I want you guys to know that there are more. There are way more, right? If you click on more types, you click on this folder right here, and it opens this right here. So you have architectural, ceramics, environments, glass, metal, miscellaneous, organic, paint, pattern, plaster, plastic, preview content, product design, textile textures, and wood. Let's see what's under textiles. All right, so I double click on textiles right there. I really wish I knew why, but this, and then go to large. Well, it should, but I think my computer has some sort of a glitch or like a bug that it's not doing that. And I think, you know, I mean, Karina is right. That is, you want to click on that so that you actually see a preview right here. So if you go under large icons right there, you should be able to see this sphere right here, the material preview property, material properties preview. Here, so and I've been having that problem for a while, right? But anyway, until I get around that, just know that you can bring in more types, right? I'll open that right there. Under architectural, you're gonna find a lot of I guess, of course, materials that will apply to your projects, particularly walls and floors, right? Such as brick, concrete, masonry, all of those. The floor as well, wood, right? Let's see what's under wood right here. right? Large icons right here. And again, it's a little bit difficult not being able to see the preview, right? But I guess we can do that. I'm really curious as well if we could actually maybe, if I could get through it right here. So let's see, more types. It's also helpful to know this address. This address right here, that's where your materials live, right? So there's been cases where students readdress their material location, and we have to go back and link this folder right here. Let's see if I can get a preview, right? Whoops, of this material right here. More times, open, right? We come over here. So see users EPCC, right? So see users EPCC, app data and roaming, right? So app data, roaming. EPCC app data roaming video. Okay, I'm not gonna get to it, but anyway, all right. So I'm just gonna play with this wood material right here, and I hit OK. Notice that it's applied now into the entire layer, though. Now, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's what we want, but sometimes it's not what we want, right? So, right, if I want to apply, let's say, a material, let's say that I'm going to remove it, right? So if you right click on that sphere right there, I'm going to remove the material, right? Because what if I only want to apply it to this material right here? You know how I'm asking you guys to play with different materials, right? So what was that? Yeah, but so that you don't have to change the layer. Yeah, right. So there's that option right there. So again, here, once, if you notice that from where we started, right on the materials tab right there, all the materials that I've been using start, being added right here. But if you select an object, if you right click on the material, you have these options right here. You can assign to the object, you can assign to the layers of the objects, assign to the layer itself, or select objects, as in you can select the object to which apply it to. You can create a new material. Never used many of all of these things right here, but if I assign layers, assign to objects, notice that it only assigned it to that object in particular. I can come back over here, bring in a new material, more types. Let's say I'll do another kind of metal. All right, let's say some polished metal, polished blue anodized. All right, so I'm loading the materials right here on the right tab. I select the object, right click on it, assign to object, and I have that material right there. Notice that again, we have the polish finish, right? You have these lighters. We can change the color, which is very nice as well. Not all the same features are in all of them, right? Right, like for example, if you double click on this material right there, you get these options. If I double click on my wood one, I get different options. Okay, these are some of the settings, right, that I was asking about right now, right? Our refraction, our glossiness, and our transparency, right? So I can make wood transparent. Not really sure how realistic that is. Refraction, right? How much does it bounce? How much light bounces off of the object itself? And the glossiness, which is again how glossy the object itself is. On this tab right here, you have the material itself, which is the mapping of the material, which is an image, which is a bitmap texture. which is again a photograph of the material that you're using right here. And we got that. Now let's say this guy right here. Nah, maybe this one over here. That's a little bit easier to read. Again, right now this object right here, it's a single object, meaning that it's all joined, all of the surfaces. But you remember, how can I select just one of the surfaces? Control Shift, right, and I select one of the options right there. Let's see if this works, right? Let's see, can I just assign to that object, right? So that then, right, again, I can select, right, and I can have multiple materials on an object that is joined, right? And again, I can, by holding Control Shift and selecting, I can assign to the objects like that directly. But again, if I click back on it, all of the faces are still joined, and more importantly, I can continue editing, right? So I can continue pushing that. Notice that some of that materials disappear right there. Any questions in terms of materials? Something that, it seems that this is all just a review, which it's good, right? I mean, anything that perhaps, how do you what? How do you add? What do you? Okay, so that would be this plus tab right here. We can do a custom. Right, so that's a custom right there. I don't know. What do you want? It's fine for something. What kind of material? How about lava? I think actually that already is a default. I think there's already a lava material right here, but there's this really nice material right here. It's called shard wood right here, which again, they kind of burn the wood member to get this charcoal look. So let's see, I can maybe save this image right here. I really highly recommend that you start. I know that you guys are. I'm not very familiar, to be honest with you, with that new software. What's it called? Lumion, right? That you guys are using for rendering. It looks great. The final product looks great, but I'm not really sure how it works. I'm not really sure if you actually even have to download textures. No, it has everything in it. Well, okay. Well, what I would suggest, being the old school that I am, is something that I should have actually a folder in this laptop. I just need to find it right now. You create your materials library locally. And these are the materials that you're going to use semester after semester, right? I mean, these are things that, at some point, you don't want to spend a few minutes just looking for the right concrete, right? I mean, you have your concrete material. And even better, what I would suggest is as you guys continue traveling and you guys explore the world, take actually photographs of materials that you actually enjoy on the street. And you can actually create your own materials off of that right there. And I know that's something that we've had to do, right? I mean, in different offices, right? I mean, just go photograph certain materials so that you get a more realistic view on that. So anyway, I created a materials folder right here. I'm going to save that texture right there. I think I saved it on my desktop. So I have this material right here. Let's see, I'm going to rename it. Right. Right, so name, I'm going to call this shard wood. It's a custom material. The texture, right? So I do want to map a texture. So that's where it sends me to this folder right here, and I click on open, right? And it's mapping it right there now onto the preview. I can give it some sort of a gloss, right? And maybe some reflection, although it's actually I don't want to do refraction on this one because that material doesn't have those properties right there. Later on, I'll talk about the bump map, and well, transparency again. We don't need that on this one right here. And well, I mean, there it is, right? Assign to object, and we have that right there, right? So that's that material that we have just created. Okay. What else? Let's see. Any other questions on that? I get sometimes asked about the orientation of the width, for example. So let's say that I wanted it to go run the opposite direction. You have, again, all of that lives within your texture, right? Which is it's not a color, but it's an image that's being mapped as the color. So all of that lives on this menu right here. If you open that up, you get to this menu right here. Your UV mapping, that just means the scale of the photograph. So think about it as when you're wrapping a present and it has a pattern, right? It has a design on it. Think about that design of the wrap paper getting smaller or bigger. Okay, so let's see. Can you guys see my preview right there? Let me. I'm gonna kind of like do that right there. So if I increase the UV right here and say, let's say at 2, right, and 2. I don't know if you guys can see this preview right here that is changing, right? So let's say if I do a 0.1. 0.1. So that changes the properties, and then the rotation, right? I can do that that direction of it. The repeat sometimes it helps as well, right? To do the repeat pattern, to play with that. And all of these, particularly some of these, are very special for when you have a big field. You know how when you have grass or gravel on your projects, and in certain renderings you can start telling that it's a rendering because it continually repeats itself. You can see like when one begins and one ends. Some of that you can start messing with it in terms of the UV direction and the repeat if you start playing with those numbers right there. Just remember though that what we're getting here, it's a render preview, right? We haven't really produced any rendering, and that lives on this window right here, okay, which is your render render tool, which is that blue sphere right there. That initiates your rendering, right? And it's the computer processing the materials and how the light affects the materials within the environment in Rhino. And remember that this can take a while. This can take some time for it to render correctly, depending on all of the attributes that you have added. If you have refractions or transparencies, those take up a while, right? Those are the ones that take up the most, I think, transparencies and refractions. So you see right here, these are green surfaces, and they're bouncing off this component right here with that sphere right there. This guy right there is bouncing off a little bit of this guy over here, and we start getting that. Now, that's my rendering right there. As soon as it's done, I can save it right from here, and I can stop this. All right, so let's see. It has 3 seconds to go. Let me just give it a few seconds for it to finish so that we can actually save it. All right, so I can go ahead and save it, and there's an image right there. Give it a name right on my desktop, rendering test 1. Say that. Okay. Now, hand in hand with rendering is lighting. Okay, and lighting is it's a really important part of your work. Lighting lives under, I think it's render tools. Yes, render tools up here. So right next to drafting, you have render tools. The render tools, you have this section right here. It's all yellow objects, right? From there to there, from there to there. The first one you see that is a spotlight. Second one is a point light, directional light, rectangular light, linear light, etc., etc. So let's start with maybe a spotlight, right? And the spotlight. The spotlights are basically a cone. So you're basically drawing a cone. So the base of the cone, let's see, where's my objects? So let me just draw one, right? So I draw the base of the cone right there, and then I give it the radius, so which is the opening. This helps to do it on your multi-views. Right, so now I go into my front view so that I can give the end of the cone, right, which I'm right here on the lower left corner right there, and I do that. And notice that on my rendering, I don't know if you guys see that, and here actually let me go ahead and move it and you'll see it, or rotate it. You should see, or we should see, this light hitting it, but we're not. There we go. You guys see, right? You guys see, there we go. I see that, and I can move the cone, right? So you see the light. It's a black color. It doesn't really help that it's a black color, but you know what I mean. I can also increase the size of the cone, right? If I scale this thing, but you could do it. Right, so if I do it and I shade it, have that right there. There we go. So okay, so then there I'm opening the cone. Okay, if I go to render, right, and again it's kind of hard to see when it's on the render view, but you can see, right, you can see how the shadows are moving a little bit. Okay, so let me pause this a little bit. All right, guys, so now that you played with a little bit of the materials, let's look into the lights. So this is what I want you guys to do. Okay, so try following along. So I want you guys to draw, well, I want you guys to actually first copy one of your logos, right? One of the logos that, you know, you're happy with. Let's say maybe it's, for me, it's that one right there. Okay, so let's bring a copy somewhere over wherever, right? I mean, just create a copy of one of your logos, okay, somewhere on the distance. Okay, so let's say that that's one of mine. Okay, so let's create a new layer. Let's call this white box. Oops. And with white box, I'm gonna give it just like a gray color. We're going to draw a box. So zoom into so select the object that you just copied, which is your logo. Right click on this tool right here, which is zoom selected on all viewports, so that we do just that. And we basically, what we want to do is we want to draw a box that fits our logo, something like that. Okay, so we want to create this box. If I go to no, not render, if I go to X-ray, you see that the object is inside. Or if I go to ghost state, yeah, just just the box. So basically what we're trying to do, it's one of those light boxes that you guys have in studio where you guys have been taking your photographs. So you have a box where you're going to put your object inside so that we can see the different types of lightings that there are in Rhino. Know what I mean? So select one of the faces of that box and delete it so that we can actually now see inside. Alright, so you should have again the object, and you can stretch the box, right? I mean, to make it larger or whatnot. Let's make 4 copies of it, right, with the object inside. Right, so we have 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now let's go ahead and create a new layer. Call it lights. And I just picked like an orange. Remember, try not pick. Avoid selecting a yellow as a layer in Rhino. So I just picked an orange, which looks a lot like a yellow. But why is it that we want to stay away from yellow as a layer? Because of the gumball. What about the gumball? Yeah, right. When you select an object, it turns what color? Yellow. Right. So you can change that actually. You can turn the selection into any color, but let's not mess with that for right now. All right, guys. So render tools. Let's explore some of the lights right here. Let's start with the simple one, which is called your rectangular light. And that would be that one right there. Create rectangular light. Okay, bless you. Let's go onto your top view of the first box, and let's draw that box right there, that light. Just see how it acts though. Right. So so it's asking you for one end, then the next one, and then it gives you the width of it. So you first set one side, and then you set the entire width of it. Now, these artifacts, these lights, notice that it has right here. You guys see? So this is mine right here where I drew it, and mine again are these. Let me get on that layer right there, lights layer right there. Okay, so let's place it right here on the top. All right, and just be aware that there's an arrow right on that rectangular light. What does that arrow is? What is the arrow? That's the direction, right, of that rectangular box. All right. So next, let's do spotlights. So again, select spotlight from the top view, right? Find the location, the position for it. The first thing that you're doing is it's called the spread, right, which is how much the cone opens. And then if you go onto your front view, you can do the length of the cone, right, of the spotlight. So we end up with this right here on our perspective. And notice that once you draw them, you can adjust them as well. And I can use the mirror command to mirror the spotlight, and I just drew one and I mirrored the next one. Okay. Now for the next box, let's play with some linear lighting. Try these linear lights right there, and just get a feel for how they work, right? And let's maybe have fun with them. Maybe do some vertically and some horizontal, right? So what happens if I again draw it like that? I'm gonna move it inwards a little bit so that it's within the box. Can use mirror right here to select it and mirror it. I'll do another linear, maybe from this mid to that mid. So those be our linear lights. Maybe even I'll make one shorter than the other one. Bring it kind of like there. All right, so we have a rectangular light as the first one. We have a couple of spotlights, which is our second one. And then we have our linear lighting, which is the third box. And for the last one, let's do what's called a directional light. Okay, and that one, let's try it from the front view. Well, try it from the perspective, see what you get, right? But this one, right, the way that it works is it's just that is a directional light right there. So even you can even work at an angle like that, right? So we can do some kind of like that. So it's similar to a spotlight, but you'll see the different behavior on it. And again, place it within the light box itself, and notice that again you can rotate it, you can edit the points once you've drawn it as well. Okay guys, so let me borrow your attention. So you have your 4 boxes right there. Before we act on your computer, let's just take a quick look right here on my screen. Okay, so when you guys are you guys familiar with the lights tab right here on the top? Yes, no? All right, so we find it, and we have the lights tab right there on the top. And it has all the lights that we have created so far. Notice that it has a name for them, right? Is it linear? Is it directional? Rectangular? Spotlight? Right? Whatnot. We can turn them on and off. Notice that once you click on it, it highlights yellow, right? So it highlights right there. So if I click on this one right there, it highlights that one right there. If I click right there, it highlights that end right there. Question, Brian? Huh? The what? Oh, okay. Well, now that we got Brian's computer back on, you know, you'll catch up, Brian. Don't worry. Well, I'll stop by and help you out. You'll see that what I want you guys to see is that there's a menu where all of your lights live. Okay, and because again, you can start having a serious amount of lights, right? I mean, through your project, and you know, light editing is also important, right? So you'll see that number one, you can name them, right? So let's see. So this one, for example, is a rectangular, and notice that as you go through them, just click once of them, it turns yellow. It highlights. But even I can call this, right? I can call this rect box, rectangular box, or something like that. You know, so we can give it a name. You can call it living room. You can call it WC kitchen, right? Whatever. Now, something that it's fun to know as well is that you can edit the next rectangle. Right, what happens when you click on the next rectangle right there, that white box? Whoops. Right? You isolate. Right? Oops. Right? And it turns all of the other ones off. And then lastly, well, you have the intensity. That number you can control right there if you double click on it. Right, it opens this window right here, and again you can change the intensity of it. You can reduce it, and probably this would look better if we're actually on the render view. Right. So notice that you can slide the intensity, and even what's even more fun is you can actually change the color of the light itself. Right, so am I on the right one? I don't think I'm on the right one. There we go. And you also have the shadow intensity as well. Alright, so you have that. Now that will affect your, if you change the light, it affects your material, right? I mean, because if you have a white material and you add like a pink light, your objects are going to look pink or they're going to look colored. All right. But I got a little bit lost, but that's okay. Let's maybe change your spotlights right there. Again, you can double click on it. You come to this menu right here. I can go, right, select it, go on to render view, and then maybe that one, you know, that has some sort of a green. I think I am on the right one. Okay, yes, I am. And this one right here. Okay, it's that one. And what I want you guys to see, right, let's do a, I'm not yet. Now notice that you also have the sun, right? It's actually a layer on the lights. Let's leave it off, and actually let's turn off skylight as well. And, you know, edit your lights right there, the intensity and whatnot. And let's run a rendering to see how they maybe look different. Right, the 4 boxes, how the 4 boxes maybe look different. Well, actually, okay, one last thing before we, one last thing that is actually important right here while you guys are waiting on your renderings and whatnot, which is actually, well, that's how it came out. Let me just save it right here, and, you know, rendering 2, which is the Rhino rendering settings. Okay, so a big part of the render quality is the settings that you have specified for the rendering itself. So if you right click, which I think if it's rendering something, you might not be able to open it, but if you right click on that blue sphere right there on the render tools, right, you should open the render settings right here. Okay, and a few very key things to know about this. Okay, so for example, it's your dimensions. Right now, Ian was asking me in terms of what's rendering, right? And I told him it was the window, which is the viewport. Okay, so you can specify right here, right, the size of that viewport by pixels. So right now it's set to the viewport size, which it actually will differ between my screen and your guys' screen since you guys have such larger screens. Right? But for me right now, those are the settings in terms of what's going to render. Notice that you can do a custom one, and you can change the size of it. Right? So I'm not gonna get too much into pixel size and you know a resolution, but there's some math involved in there in terms of you know, I mean, a really good high quality rendering. The DPI, which is the dots per inch, that's also important. And as a rule of thumb, you want to have that to 300. That's for a final project. That's for a final project quality, the 300. For a test one, you can do a 150 or even a 75 or 72, which is the standard right there. Right, so that would be this button, this box right there, which is your DPI. Another big one is actually the quality. Notice that it has low, draft, good, and final quality. I would recommend that you use those accordingly. You use low or draft quality for a test or a desk script. You use maybe good for a test print that you're doing, and final quality for the final. These settings right here are drastically going to increase and decrease your rendering time from a low to a final quality. Okay, as well as your DPI. Again, I would recommend that you leave it to a 300 and you decreases as you need. The backdrop, that's the sky. Well, we can call it, quote unquote, it's the sky. Right now it's on a solid color, white. We can change that. We can turn that into a gradient. Notice that as soon as I click on gradient, my screen changes and it gives me just that, a gradient. That's a good way, that's a good easy way to do a sky without having to render a sky, you know. And I like to do something like a blue and a purple. Right, it's kind of like a very light on one, and then you know you can do another, right, something kind of like that starts giving you some nice skies for your renderings. Or you can do a transparent background, which is right there. And I think those would be the main. Oh, okay. So resolution and quality, we talked about that. The backdrop, we talked about that. Now the sun and the skylight. So again, if you're rendering something and you don't see anything, this happens a lot, right? Like, oh, Munoz, I'm rendering, right, and I don't see anything. It might be because number one, you have no lights, and number two, your sun and your skylight is off. Right? So the sun settings, you know, I won't get into it right now, but if you click on sun settings, you can actually set, right, the latitude and the orientation of the sun. Even better, you can click where it says now, and that would be the time right now, and you can click where it says here, and it will find us on the map, and we are right there. Okay, so I guess it's showing Albuquerque. I don't know about that, but that should be the here. But that's later on. You know, later on we'll do some sun studies for your final project. For right now, we're not really doing the sun, but that's where the sun lives with his cool shades on. All right, so again, because Marily was just asking me right now about grain, right? Whenever you render something and you see those little white dots, again, that has to do with the resolution. Either it's too low or the quality is too low as well. Okay, but again, if you have it on low quality, you most likely will get those. Let's see, maybe let me run a quick render right here on a low. But that's normal. And I'm not getting the grains, but anyway, you get them when you have a good amount of lights and textures, materials. And just know, again, as I mentioned, that the more materials that you have, the higher the rendering time that it might take for this. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna pause this. I did wanted to give us time right here during class. Any questions maybe before I pause? Anything that while you've done renderings you're always curious about? No? Okay.